panel sessions, and will be done by noon today. So it will be short, but very interesting, again, very informational. So now I'm going to share my the screen up here about the second day program. What did the second day program look like? So as you see here, second day, we have a keynote session. We have two speakers, Craig Rawlings and Kate Watkins. And then we have, after that, our panel number 3, talking about business financing and assistance. And then first enterprise idea, that's for about 1 hour, 20 minutes. That's we have 3 panel members, and there will be a Q&A after all the 3 presentations is completed. And then we're gonna have a 10-minute break, 10:30 to 10-minute break. After that, there'll be another panel coming in, sharing some success story and first products business operation. So again, we do have 3 keynote speakers for that panel, and followed by Q&A. And then Damon is coming in and finish up with our entire seminar. So that's the plan for our this afternoon session. So before we get into the keynote session, I'd like to ask Damon to come in to say a few words about housekeeping item and maybe a good reminder for us. So here is Damon.
All right, thanks, Han. Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you back with us today. If you were here yesterday, then all of this stuff is not new to you, but if you weren't able to join yesterday, just a couple of quick notes. So we're in a Zoom webinar, which is a little different than Zoom meetings, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. In the webinar, you're automatically muted and your video is off, so people can't see and hear you, and there's no option to change those things. The kind of options you do have to interact are, if you look on the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box is one of them. That's what you want to use to communicate with either hosts or other people in the audience. And just a quick note, the default for the chat sends the message only to panelists, which are the people on the screen. So if you want to communicate with the audience members, you have to click the little drop down and select send the message to audience members and panelists. The other option you have down there at the bottom is the Q&A box, and that's going to be your best bet to ask questions to presenters. The chat's likely going to have a lot of traffic, so a question might get lost in there. But during a presentation, you can type questions into the Q&A. You can type them at any time. You don't need to wait until the end of the presentation. And then after each panel, the moderator will go through those questions, ask them to the presenters, and then they'll get answered. Another note is that we are recording the session. It's recording right now, and we'll post the recordings to our website afterwards, and everybody that's registered will receive a link to those. Another note is this is less relevant today than yesterday, but the link you used to join this morning, you can reuse over and over again. So if you have to leave and rejoin, use the same link and password. And then finally, if you want CFE credits or continuing forestry education credits from SAF, just at some point today, now would be a good time, type your name into the chat and mention CFE or continuing forestry education, and we'll make sure to get you those credits. Today is worth 3.5 credits, and you do have to attend the entire day, and we'll have attendance logs to verify that. That's all the notes I have for today. Thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the presentations. Han, you're muted.
Thanks, Damon. So another question I've been getting from audience if this presentation will be a record and then available for later. Yeah, can you answer that?
Yeah, it will be recorded and it will be available on our website. So we'll follow up. If you've registered, you'll receive an email within the next week to those links.
Right. So sounds good. And then we are going to have another webinar, a seminar this in the fall.
Yep. And I'll mention this again at the end of the day, but the wood utilization team will be putting on these kind of events about twice a year. So the next one will be in fall 2021. So stay tuned for that.
Great. So, okay. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And so now well, let's see. I think we can get right into the keynote session. And just a reminder for audience. So you have on your at the bottom of your screen have the Q&A box. So as is a reminder that when you if you have a question you'd like to ask, please enter your questions in the Q&A box. The easy for a moderator to pick up your questions and make sure your questions be answered. So with that, now I'd like to introduce the first keynote speaker, Craig Rawlings. Well, I'm very happy to invite and introduce Craig Rawlings here, and he's a good colleague of mine. And I think that many of you know Craig because you've been, some of you, at least, maybe many of you, getting his weekly newsletter. So reading, enjoying all the updates and what's going on and all over the country in forestry and the forest products industry. So so we invited Craig to our webinar because Craig has been a very innovative leader in forest industry. And Craig has been involved with a wide range of forest operations and products of research. And he's been coordinating and stimulating the development of the new forest products and facilitating facilitating the exchange of ideas and innovations by organizing and running the conferences in the past, such as small wood conferences. These days, mass timber conferences is another good example of his leadership, trying to help people connect and exchange ideas. We are again enjoy that the newsletter he's getting at like you got probably one today this morning. Now I'm hearing that Craig does not have I think this keynote session will be a little bit different from the one we had yesterday, because this time we're going to have just more about discussion rather than sharing them the PowerPoint and then presenting some information. Instead, we are going to have we start with his a little bit of comments at the introduction about Craig himself and what he's thinking, related to our title, saying about the past and presence and the future of forest products industry. And then we're going to have some discussion between he and me. And then we're going to open the discussion onto the floor so anyone can ask any questions. So again, I'd like to take this opportunity to learn more about Craig's passion and experience in forest products industry. Hopefully, we can learn some more things out of that. And I think that's pretty much what I'm thinking as far as the introduction. And Craig, now can you share some with us about your own experience and ideas and thoughts about forest products industry in the Western United States.
You bet, Han. Good to see you and good to be here with the audience today. Hats off to you and the SWERI team. You guys have just pulled off an awesome event and just unreal that you got around 300 attendees. That's fantastic. Hopefully our discussion this morning will stimulate some good questions. I mean, we really want to answer some questions, so fire them at Han and I as we're talking away here. And like you said, we'll respond the best way we can at the end. Okay, about my background. Well, to put things in perspective, I turned 70 in January. My wife and I just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary this past weekend. And I spent my entire 50-year career in the forest products sector and loved every minute of it. Well, almost every minute of it. We all have a bad day once in a while, right, Han?
Yep, you got it.
Maybe Han doesn't, but most of us do. Most positive energetic guy I've ever met is Han-Sup Han. I have sawdust in my blood. My grandfather, Harry Rawlings, built sawmills on the West Coast. My father, Cliff Rawlings, built and owned sawmills in Arizona, Oregon, California, Colorado, and Montana. And I started my career in Montana as a sawmill manager. I worked throughout the forest product sector supply chain, including about 8 years in the not-for-profit world as a forest business consulting manager. Also, in my early years, I worked with my parents and two brothers building sawmills and manufacturing and marketing an innovative wastewood hog that my father invented. It was real timely and innovative at the time in the 80s when power rates were off the charts and wood hogs and chippers used a lot of energy. And this device he invented and still around today used half the horsepower and produced twice the amount of throughput. So it's a pretty cool machine, and we had a lot of fun with that. And since we're talking about the Southwest, I want to mention that I have ties to the region. My family lived in Montrose in the early 60s, where my father owned a sawmill. My daughter was born at Navapache Hospital in Shoalo, Arizona, when I was working with my dad and brothers building a new mill in White River for the Apache tribe. So it's nice to be here today and be talking about the Southwest and the West. I'm also really proud to say that my brother Mike Rawlings still builds sawmills, and my brother John still manufactures that wastewood hog. That wood hog got me into the world of biomass at an early age. And Han, you and I know a few things about biomass, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do. We've been around quite a bit doing different projects or together. Right. Well, I want to talk about, what I really enjoy and keeps me motivated, and that's definitely innovation and technology and how technology can help our sector. Like I mentioned, in 1980, my father and brothers and I, speaking of innovation, my father, brothers and I built and operated a log yard processor that turned bark and broken, dirty logs into boiler fuel for the mills. And I've had the opportunity to work with Han here on technological advances in the woods, like roll-off containers to collect and transport logging slash. And Han, you might want to add in on that. I mean, that was quite the project, and I think it's helped a lot of people today.
Yeah, so that was the early 2000s, almost going back to the 20 years ago. And people, scrambling to figure out how to manage the biomass because there's a lack of market, a very high cost to handle, and we don't know what to do with it. And so that's been quite a challenge, but you came up with a very, very interesting idea about roll-off container, and you borrowed that roll-off container operation and made truck from British Columbia.
Yeah.
And that was really opening eyes to a lot of people to understand the we can use that roll-off container truck to access some very the curvy, sharp curve of the poor quality first road, to extract them out. So that was quite of the new ideas, and actually that idea has been used in California quite a bit. So that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a fun project. Thanks for adding in on that, Han. Well, I'm
And
gonna, oh, go ahead.
that you are the one that took leadership on that. I just
No.
participated.
It was a team effort, and you took it to another level when you started your research on it. So yeah, it's just been a fantastic run with all the projects you and I have worked together on. I'm going to fast forward today to today. My business partners, Tom Waddell and Arnie Didier, and I own and manage Forest Business Network, a company we founded together mainly because of our love for forests and a desire to keep forest as forest. We produce the weekly newsletter that Han mentioned earlier that goes out to about 10,000 people worldwide every Wednesday morning. I think a lot of you on the call here or the webinar are subscribers. We own and co-produce the International Mass Timber Conference with Woodworks. And we publish the International Mass Timber Report, an annual report we've been doing for the last 3 years. And we provide technical and consulting for the forest product sector. What do you think, Han? Is that enough about me?
Yeah.
I'm going to answer some questions here in a minute. What do you want to do next here?
Sure, that sounds good. That's been very helpful. That was very helpful for us to see about what you went through with your career. And what you're doing these days. The one question I have for you. So I think that you are the one of the great witness in forest products industry, watching what's been happening in the forest products industry over the last 50 years. So there's been a lot of changes in forest products industry. What are the biggest changes you have seen in the past, and what caused those kind of changes?
Well, there have been a lot, but I'm just going to focus on two right now. When I first started in the industry in 1970, teepee burners were going out. The EPA had mandated it, and that was a really good thing. Those burners were, terrible polluters, and they were fire hazards. So there were sparks flying every place. I think they burned down a few sawmills over the years. The pulp and paper industry, though, they capitalized on that regulation that the EPA came out with banning teepee burners in the early 70s. And they became a market for mill residue that had been typically going up in smoke. And so all of a sudden we had a market for chips at the mills, and that drove innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship, because the pulp mills, well, they'd buy the chips, but they needed the mills to put in chip bins, chippers, hogs, debarkers, all these different things, and which was a really, really good thing at that time. So anyway, when I first met Han in early 2000, the second really significant thing I started to see shaping up was, a new movement that was happening to the industry. And I'll sum it up in one word, and that was collaboration instead of timber wars. We'd all got to a point there in the 80s, everybody was in the 90s fighting over things. But then in early 2000, after the fires of 2000, people started looking at things differently, that, we needed to get along and work together in forest management. So I really see that was a real significant thing that happened, this collaborative movement. It's continuing today. It's already overlapped another generation, and I think it'll be around for generations. and I guess I'll just end on that part is that, collaboration has become the new normal. Sorry. Well, Han, and you've been involved in all this collaborative movement. You got any comments you want to add in right now? And
yeah, so I think the one collaboration example, I think I would echo what that Craig just described. That speaking about collaboration, the one example I can tell with the biomass idea about the BORI project, Biomass Research and Development Initiative, which is the funding program by USDA and then DOE. So there were a couple of the BORI projects around in the Western United States. Those include the NARA and Waste to Wisdom, and there are a couple others like in Colorado. Is the that was it was not a body, but at the USDA SAS program, there's the team. You can help me on that one. The biomass utilization project based on the targeting the beetle killed trees. A banner. This came to my idea as a banner. So all these projects is showing the great example about the a lot of stakeholders and communities and contractors and foresters, agency people get involved to solve some of the problems with our forest management. As well as the utilization of the wood and the material for a lot of different products. So I think that collaborative effort has been going on quite a bit over the last, I guess, 2 decades.
so it looks like one other thing you want me to elaborate on was, what do I think might strengthen our forest industry in the U.S. West? And I think to me, it's again, innovation and research. That's what's going to move the needle. The future Forest Operations Training Center that Han's planning to bring to NAU is a great example of that. And I'll bring that back up in a couple more minutes. I see you got a comment or another question here that you wanted to talk about there, Han.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask another question here is about it's been my experience, it's been my observation that you have organized small wood conferences for many years, and I was one of them. One of the many people enjoyed learning quite a bit about a lot of interesting examples of the innovation in wood and the biomass utilization. What I'd like to ask you is that what lessons did you learn from managing those conferences? Can you share any thoughts and ideas on how we can incorporate those lessons into our future effort in small wood and the biomass utilization?
Sure. Well, I love producing that small log conference, and we did it from 2004 to 2015. Then in 2016, we shifted to the International Mass Timber Conference. Times were changing. And even though the small log conference addressed many of the challenges dealing with small diameter and underutilized timber that Han, you and I have been working on for the last at least 20 years, we still needed to create a market-based solution in order to deal with the skinny trees choking our forests. So thus the mass timber and engineered wood products came along, and they can utilize small trees to make panels stronger than steel and 75% stronger than concrete.
Yeah, so we had the great presentation by Katera yesterday. We had the Sarah Smith. She gave us great details on the mass timber operation, and we also had an even virtual field trip on the mass timber operation. So the mass timber the construction. So that was a very helpful information. Now, I just want to follow up. So you and I've been, you've been focusing on quite a bit about small wood utilization and the biomass utilization, and then another innovation, another kind of a leadership effort that you are taking on, that is the mass timber. How did you get into that? How did you get into about the new kind of a innovation idea putting on the table, and then you're taking a great leadership on the putting great conference you're putting together?
Well, I'm flattered, Han, that you keep mentioning that I did all that. And it's been a major team effort, huge collaborative effort, but thanks anyway for that. The Mass Timber Conference has been a great success for our company, FBN, and it stood up a brand new industry. And both the new industry and FBN, or the conference, have been growing about 30% a year since 2016, since we held the first one in Portland, Oregon. To me, most of the success can be attributed to a movement from around the world to replace concrete and steel. Wood is the perfect substitute, as we all know here, you and I, Han, and the audience. And as I mentioned, my business partners we're passionate about forest health and proactively managing forest in a sustainable manner. So this all ties together. And I want to say, never in my 50 years in the sector would I have ever imagined taking folks from the tech sector like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Sidewalk Labs out on a forest tour of a forest restoration site, then a mill tour right after that, and then take them through a CLT plant. And then at the end of that day, being together with all these folks, sit down and talk about how forest and wood buildings can help the planet draw down carbon in a sustainable way and keep our forests as forest. The tech companies, they've just become the world's largest commercial real estate developers. For years, they were tenants. Now they're building campuses and they're owners of these buildings, and they don't want them to emit carbon. And they want them to be beautiful places to work in order to retain and attract employees. And wood construction checks all their environmental and sustainability boxes. So no, it's been a great ride with that. I see it, continuing going forward. And our annual events coming up here at the end of the month, March 30th through April 1st. So I hope you can, anybody in the audience would like to hear more about that can join us.
Great.
Han, back to the your forest operations training center that you plan to bring to NAU. I know I want to hear more, and I'm sure the audience
Okay.
wants to hear about that. I hope that might generate some questions.
Absolutely. We can certainly come back to that. But I have two questions came in, so I'd like to read that question for you. First question was, and then we can go back to we can talk about the first operation training center. So as you talked about small wood utilization, I assume there is a material that does not make a saw log specification, like a 5-inch plus the tops. Is that correct?
That is a very correct assumption. Looking for markets for these, overstocked forests when we go in and thin them out, that, hopefully we can get a way to make them pay their way. But that's a very correct assessment from that question here.
That's the same person asked the questions regarding about that small wood, small logs. So is there anyone using small log on the 5-inch and top material for mass timber in the United States?
Not yet in the US. Go to Europe, where they've been making mass timber for 25 years. They use 2x2s, 2x3s for the core of the cross lamps. And then they use like 2x4, 2x6, 2x8, like we do here in the US for the outer. But in the US right now, they're using all pretty much 2 and better, 2/4, 2/6, and 2/8 for the feedstock for the lambs.
Great, thank you. So going back to the first operations training center. So I just, I'm happy to talk about it. So it's been my experience that the people, trying to do a lot of the fuel reduction thinning operation, forest restoration operation, and for the good example here in Arizona, in Fall Fry, we're trying to treat about 50,000 acres per year. But if we look at our capacity of the logging operation and trucking operation, even the utilization of the material coming out of that, restoration treatment, we do not have a capacity. And we, in the over last about 10 years, we've seen here in Arizona about, we've been treating about 12 to 14, 15,000 acres per year. And but our goal was to treat about 50,000 acres a year. So we need to increase the capacity of the logging and trucking operation. Number two, I think the forestry workforce are aging. So I think that we need more young blood to coming in our forest products industry, and make sure our profession and the capacity is more sustainable and strong in capacity. So with that kind of idea, we applied for grant to the Economic Development Administration, and we got some grant to develop the Forest Operation Training Center here in Arizona. So with that grant, we are trying to develop the 3 key training programs, include curriculum for training equipment operator and truck drivers, and then the repair and maintenance professionals. So those are the programs we're trying to build. And I think that we'll be working on developing a training program and curriculum over the 2 years, and we hope to offering that program at the beginning of fall next year, so fall 2022.
Great, thanks, Han, for that. How are we doing on time, buddy?
I think we are getting close. So last question I have for you. So with your 50 years of experience, where do you see our forest operations and the forest products industry going forward?
That's a good question. To me, it's going to be the entrepreneurs, like so many of you in the audience. You're going to be the ones that are going to drive market disruption, technology, and innovation. If I were 25 years younger, here's what I'd be investing in. Nanocellulose, grind up logging slash, process those nanofibers into clothing products that will replace plastic. That's a great thing. Biofuel. Han and I have already been involved in several research and development projects that show potential for converting logging slash into jet fuel. Remotely operated logging and construction equipment. Imagine an equipment operated Han's new Forest Operations Training Center here in Flagstaff running $1 million piece of equipment out on the Mogollon Rim. Drones and forest ops. Now imagine a technician in Han's Training Center having parts delivered to a logging site. Engineered wood products, cross-laminated timber in 2021 was a new industry, 2012, excuse me, was a new industry in the US. Now there are 10 plants in the US with several more being planned. So those are where I'd be focusing my investment dollars with my 50 years of experience if I could go back 25 years.
Great. I think the those items you mentioned, like this, the nanocellulose and biofuel and drone and engineered wood products, all those. I think our keynote speaker yesterday, Brian Bradshaw, also mentioned those items. Also, something is very coming on board with a lot of excitement and with the good promising results. So those are the good ones to think about as well. I'm glad that you mentioned those items. So sounds like those items maybe have a good potential for our future forest products industry. I'd like to thank you again. I think it's time's up. So I'd like to thank you again for Craig for your time, and I also appreciate your contribution and your passion, and trying to taking some good leadership and on the forest products industry. So I really appreciate it, and I would say keep it up.
Thanks, Han.
We're not gonna let you go.
All
So
right,
keep it up, and we appreciate it. I'm looking forward to continue working with you.
perfect. See you guys.
Great, thank you. So now we are moving into the next keynote speaker. So I'm happy to introduce our next keynote speaker, Keith Watkins. Well, if you are interested in building forest products business operations capacity here in Arizona, I think you might want to see Keith Watkins. You might want to see him. Well, Keith Watkins serves as a senior vice president of the Legislative Affairs and Rural Development for Arizona Commerce Authority. In this capacity, Keith plays a vital role in ACA's effort to advance Arizona's rural economies, as well as advising governor's office on rural economic development issues and opportunities while managing legislative affairs. So as the state of Arizona is a leading economic development agency, the ACA drives the state's job growth, which has resulted in 132,000 new announced jobs that represents over 14.5 billion in capital investment in Arizona since the inception of the ACA. Keith has been with ACA for the last nine years. Additionally, Keith oversees the state of Arizona's broadband effort, and he's been very instrumental in advancing the forest restoration in Arizona. And he serves on the board of directors for Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, which is a public bonding authority. That's the last information I have here for him. That is the on Arizona. He's an Arizona native, and he's a graduate of the University of Arizona. And he's been 30 years of experience in economic development and real estate areas in Arizona. So the reason we brought we invited Keith Watkins to come in to give us some talk on about his experience, because I think it's been our experience that when people are trying to build the opening of a new forest products business here in the Southwest, and especially in Arizona, in this case with the Keith Watkins, that the people need some assistance and help with how they can start opening up their business. So I think the Keith Watkins is going to help us understand what's been happening here in Arizona, and it might be also good lessons for other places in the Southwest. So with that, Keith, hand it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, Han. It's great to be here this morning. It's really an impressive group of folks you've assembled, and I couldn't be more honored to be your guest this morning. Let me see if I can pass the first test here and share the screen. Let's see here. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can you display. There you go.
There we go. Okay, very good. So as Dr. Han said, he referenced capacity in his conversation with Craig Rawlings. And in Arizona, we need to enhance our capacity in terms of being able to process all of the timber that we have on the forest floor, especially in light of the phase 2 forthright RFP that is currently out. So it's in that vein that I'm here today, and I want to tell you a little bit about who the Commerce Authority is, what we do, and some of the things that relate to the forest products industry. We are the state's economic development arm. Our CEO is Sandra Watson, and the chairman of our board is Governor Ducey. We have a three-pronged mission of job growth. And well, I should say we have a specific mission of job growth. We execute that through a three-pronged approach of working to attract new industries to the state, helping existing Arizona companies expand here, and then growing our entrepreneurial ecosystem. And it should be noted that we focus our efforts on what is considered base industry. And very simply, base industry are things like manufacturers, processors, headquarters, distribution centers, data centers, operation centers, these sorts of things. It is not retail oriented operations. So with that, we have had some a pretty good success rate over the last coming up on 10 years. Last year, we were successful in working with 133 projects that represented almost 25,000 net new jobs to the state at an average annual wage of $68,000. The $15.1 billion capital investment is a significant number in that it represents net new injection of money into our economy. And so those are the four metrics that we track daily, and we try to stick very close to making some of these stretch goals that we've established for ourselves. So far this year, we're on track to beat last year. We have been extremely busy with projects that are very, very significant in size and scope. So things are not letting up. Among some of the other things that we do, other than industrial recruitment or business recruitment and attraction, we work on foundational items. Workforce is one of those things. We partner with the Arizona at Work Network, as well as the community colleges and the 3 state universities. We also use our workforce team to be part of our turnkey service we provide to clients we're working with on how to access the Arizona labor pool and where to find the skill sets that are necessary. So Han, I'm really thrilled to hear about your training center. I think it's very, very timely, and look forward to learning more about that. I think there's some great synergies that could be had there. Another fundamental thing that we've been working on is broadband connectivity in rural Arizona. You see the map to the right. These represent long-haul fiber networks, and you can see the hole in the donut in northeastern Arizona. We are working to fix that and to enhance the connectivity for all Arizonans. So how does that relate to forestry? It relates to forestry in that everything that we do in this day and age is related to some kind of internet connectivity. If you think about reading tablets for prescriptions, communicating on your cell phone, communicating at your computer, it all gets back to a wire, or in this case, fiber. People ask about, what about wireless? Wireless is great. However, wherever there's a tower, it comes back to a piece of fiber. And so the key is we have to get enhanced fiber infrastructure out to the rural areas so that we can enhance this connectivity. We have embarked on a very ambitious program to put conduit in the state of the state-owned right-of-way, the ADOT right-of-way on I-17 from Anthem to Flagstaff, on I-40 from Flagstaff to California, and then also on I-19. And then we'll open that up to competitive bid for carriers to pull their fiber through. The key to that build is there's going to be turnouts every mile. And so this isn't just a long haul network, it's a long haul network that has the capability to be tapped into for the local communities. So who is Keith Watkins and who's the ACA and what the heck do they have to do with forestry? Roughly 3 years ago, I was summoned to a meeting with then Forester Jeff Whitney and SRP, and they had just come from a fire briefing with the governor, and the governor implored them to get something done in the forest. So somehow they corralled me into this conversation, and that kicked off a 3-year experience wherein we approached the Forest Service and essentially volunteered ourselves upon them to help them write their phase 2 RFP. The reason we did that was we wanted to be sure that there was a business case to be made. For Arizona, as many of you know better than I, we lack the capacity in terms of industry to process what needs to come off the forest floor. And so when creating an RFP, we had to be sure that there was a business case to be made so that it would be attractive to somebody, or attractive enough to somebody that they would come in and build a mill. And so that was our aim. And it took us a while, and as Cal Joyner used to say, there was a lot of cussing and discussing, but we got there, we got it done. We wrote the RFP, and it's now out on the streets. In the course of that, I was also, or have been also, active in recruiting industry to bid on the RFP. And not only bid on the RFP, but also consider Arizona as a location to establish a facility. And so I'm happy to say that I've been working with several companies that are bidding on the RFP that all have plans to build facilities in northern Arizona should they get the award. So it's been a long odyssey, but it's been very fulfilling, and I hope to see it come through with a successful award. Key to this was I put down here the 20-year stewardship authority. As many of you know, these mills are no small feat. They involve millions and millions of dollars, and it is impossible for an investor, a finance institution, or even an entrepreneur to amortize those millions of dollars over just 10 years. You just can't have the cash flow necessary to service that debt. And so the 20-year stewardship authority getting passed was a key hurdle for us, and there was a lot of people that got involved in that, and thankfully that passed. And this phase 2 RFP is set to be the first 20-year stewardship mechanism that the Forest Service utilizes. So now to the good stuff. We, as part of being Arizona's economic development arm, we also administer all of the tax credits that the state has relative to employers. Many people call these incentives. but they really are tax credits. With regard to the forest industry, we've got a tax credit called the Healthy Forest Tax Credit. This has been around for a number of years. It hasn't been utilized as much as it should or could be. And I have to fight every year at the legislature to keep them from cutting it because we don't have enough activity in Arizona's forests to have any great numbers or applicants associated with this. We have, I believe, 8 applicants that utilize this tax credit. And so I have to fight that battle every year. But this is a terrific tax credit for companies that are engaged in the forest products industry. As with anything, you have to look at the qualifiers. And the qualifiers are any company that is primarily engaged, which means over 50%, in a qualifying project. So then you have to define what's a qualifying project. And a qualifying project, as it says here, is any company that's harvesting, transporting, processing, or qualifying forest products, which are dead, standing, or fallen timber, and forest thinnings associated with the harvest of small diameter slash, wood chips, peelings, brush, and other woody vegetation. So once you pass that hurdle and you have one full-time employee, you enter into a memorandum of understanding with us. And then as you go about your business for the forthcoming year, you file that memorandum of understanding with the Department of Revenue when you file your taxes. And so what do you get? You get sales tax exemption on equipment that's purchased or leased, construction contracts. Think about building a $500 million sawmill. That's pretty significant. Repair parts, motor vehicle, and used fuel. Those are all reoccurring costs that are very, very significant to an operator. And then property tax reduction, which is equally as huge, a reduction from 18% of assessed value down to 5% for real and personal property and the improvements thereon. So this is a very robust program that if you're engaged in the forest products industry in Arizona, I really encourage you to take advantage of. It's in statute. If you qualify for it, you get it. There's no discretion at all involved. It's very cut and dry. The other thing, which Han, you'll be glad to know, there's an employment income tax credit of $3,000 that's divided over 3 years for new full-time equivalent employees that are hired. And the qualifiers there are you have to pay an hourly wage above the county median. The employer has to offer to pay 25 to 50% of the employee's insurance, and the job must primarily involve supporting the operations. And then lastly, there's a workforce training credit, which reimburses for expenses up to $3,000 per year for per enterprise. So if you want to know more about this, you want to get more into the details, or you want to apply, you see the website there at the bottom. Or you can certainly reach out to me and I can help you. Lastly, on the legislative front, the Arizona legislature is in session currently. There are 2 bills going through, one in the House, one in the Senate, that are the same bill. They mirror each other. These are called mirror bills. And this is done to speed up the process of getting through the House and the Senate concurrently. This bill essentially enhances the corporate income tax credit for healthy forest enterprises. And it adds a tax credit of $10,000 for the first 20,000 tons processed, with an additional $5,000 for every 10,000 tons processed after that. There is a cap on it of $500,000 per taxpayer per year, with a $2 million yearly cap for the entire program. So anyhow, I throw that out there. So if anybody's interested in following that, or supporting that, that's something that can benefit the industry. So with that, I will stop and take any questions that may be out there.
Yeah. So great, Kate. Thanks for the your great presentation there. It's good to know about those programs and incentives and information. So one question. Actually, we have two questions and one comment so far. So first question is, can you summarize the main elements that were lacking in the original RPF that your group was able to improve?
Well, that's a tough one because there was a lot of them, and I think the key element was we put in some pricing options that could be available for the Forest Service to consider, as well for the applicants to consider. And so we added some flexibility to that instead of tying it to one index. So that was one thing. The other thing was biomass. There's a biomass component in there that essentially says the more biomass you take off of the deck, the higher the points you'll get in the scoring of the application. So I think that's huge, given our biomass situation here in Arizona. So I think those are really kind of the two key elements there.
Great, thank you. Next question says, what lessons have you learned from this healthy forest tax credits? What advice would you give other states interested in exploring something similar?
What lessons have we learned? I think the biggest thing is making it well known and making people aware that it exists. There are probably people today in the industry in Arizona that don't know this exists and are leaving money on the table. So I think that's the first thing. Lessons for other states wishing to do something. I like the philosophy of a corporate tax credit because you are getting something after you do it. In other words, from a governmental standpoint, you're not getting a check up front. That's very dangerous for both governments and private enterprise to do. So the fact that it's performance-based, that's the key, I think is the way to go. And I think that's very sound public policy that nobody can get hurt on. Because if you don't perform, you don't get the benefit and nobody's harmed. However, if you do perform as you intended, then you get the benefit. So I think that's the way to go.
Okay, so next question here is says that are all your tax credits available to out-of-state companies that would do business in Arizona or just Arizona-based companies?
Great question. They're available to anyone who is operating in Arizona. However, they're only effective if you have a tax liability in Arizona. And so if you're paying taxes in Colorado, but you don't owe any taxes in Arizona, they're not going to do you any good.
Great, thank you. The next question says, can you take a moment and do a little more in depth about a 20-year stewardship authority?
I don't know that I could do it justice as well as some of the others that are probably on the call or in the audience here. But from my perspective, what was key to it is that it gave some predictability to industry. It gave some confidence to industry that they could make an investment and know that they had a 20-year agreement. And the key to that for us, needing enhanced capacity, was really the finance markets. the finance markets also very much like predictability and stability. And so the 20 years gives that, plus it gives a longer amortization period for the project to cash flow and be a solvent operation on paper. So that was to us really the first major hurdle that we had to overcome to get to where we are today, which hopefully it manifests itself in success with the whole Forefront project.
Thank you. So last question I have here, is there any possibility of tax incentives for companies that provide forestry service, aiding the loggers and the processing operations?
Well, anything's possible, I guess I'll say. Whoever asked that question is probably referring to consultants or consulting operations. I think the prevailing thought now today is we need operations on the ground processing things. That's something that we're in dire need of, and we've got a time element that we're racing against. And so that's where we're focusing our efforts. So anything's possible, I'll say.
Great. Thank you. Great. Thank you so much, Keith. That's been very informational, and we will follow up on anything with any additional questions. Thanks again.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So now I think it is 3 minutes over than what we scheduled, but I'd like to hand over now to our next moderator.